Welcome to the starting lineup with Andrew Wiebe. I'm Jason Saghini. We are still both undefeated in the Extra Time Experts League, Andrew, so we must be doing something right, and we're here to lend you our advice. One thing I think you should all check out, if you haven't already, on the Fantasy Manager page, the new Stats tab. What can they find there, Andrew? Yeah,
a big addition there. Really make sure that you can have the maximum value, the maximum form, all the guys that are really pushing at this point in time, who's buying whose value could potentially go up in the coming weeks, all the information you need to know to make sure you have the best 11 week to week.
All right, and if you haven't signed up for MLS Fantasy, don't forget you can sign up in any given week. There are weekly prizes in plenty of leagues like the Extra Time Radio League, so make sure you sign up today. And now we get on to the questions, and we'll start with Ronnie Shaban. He asks, is it better to make transfers early in the week to avoid drops in value, or wait until the last minute to get an injury report?
Well, I think this is a double-edged sword, Ronnie. You have two things that you're thinking about here. Yes, those players could potentially drop in value, and your sale could not be as worth as much as you thought. But at the same time, the guys that you're picking up to replace them, those could be the ones going up in value, because I have to think you're going to be choosing people that other people are also looking to pick up based on production. So keep that in mind. Do you think you guys will drop, or will the guys' value be a better fit at that time? And injuries, stay away from anybody on the bubble. That's my personal philosophy. If they're on the bubble, you don't want them coming into this week.
To summarize, Andrew, make your picks early in the week. That's the way that I go. Stay away from guys who are involved in injury decisions. And speaking of, we got a question from Dan Laria on Eddie Gavin. What's the deal with Eddie Gavin? How is he going to be, what's his status headed into the weekend? Again, avoid Eddie Gavin here. We don't know. It's going to be a game time decision. So as of right now, I say there's plenty of other guys out there at the $8 million range that you could get.
Yeah, a lot of options. As you said, a Darlington Nagbe there to be picked up, or maybe a Patrice Bernier. You know Nick DeLeon really hurt the Red Bulls last year. That's a big one to look at. And then if you want to go with bargains, maybe a guy like Davey Arnaud or Sam Cronin. Both guys underneath that allow you to use that other transfer wisely.
All right, next question comes in from Adam, and he says, is it better to have an average player on a good team or a good player on an average team? I love that question, Adam.
Yeah, and it's all about position. If you're a defender, you want a guy that's on a good team, because those shutout points, those are going to be the ones that really push those guys and push your point total from week to week. But if you're looking at midfielders and forwards, production is the name of the game. Certainly, if they're on a good team, more likely to be productive. But if they're going to get goals, even for a team at the bottom of the table, go ahead and get those guys.
All right, Alan Wanamaker asked the next question. He says, it seems like there are bargains to be had at Toronto FC. I picked up Robert Earnshaw for $7.5 million last weekend. Are there other bargains on that team that I should be looking at?
Well, Alan, you're welcome. I recommended, of course, Robert Earnshaw. Wasn't smart enough to pick him up myself last week, but I've corrected that one at this point. John Bostock at $6.5 million, another guy to look at. He's kind of got the keys to that attack. Can they continue to be productive? Then Joe Bindick and Kyle Becker are two cheap options that you might look at if you're on a budget.
All right, but keep in mind, if you're stocking up on Toronto FC players, they have a bye next week, so you don't want to get caught with too many of those guys on your team. Moving on, Mike Beck asks, with $1 million to spend, should I upgrade from Jeff Park to Omar Gonzalez, or should I transfer Troy Perkins and pick up Tally Hall?
Well, this is a no-brainer to me. You go with Omar Gonzalez. We saw last night against Herediano. The guy can score goals. Same thing in MLS Cup. That has a lot more value than that whatever the push is going to be between Tally Hall and Perkins. Both these teams very good. We've seen Montreal have a good start. I think for sure Gonzo is your man.
Yeah, not enough difference between the goalkeepers. And to add to that, Omar Gonzalez is actually my captain as of right now. That's how strongly I feel about the LA Galaxy going up against Chivas this Sunday. Next question is from Jake. He says, when can we expect to lose the likes of Graham, Zuzi, and company to U.S. national team call-ups?
Well, they'll be around for this round, so don't worry about them at this point. Load up all you want. But one thing to think about, after they leave after round 3, if you've got a big group of these guys, your Eddie Johnsons, Graham Zusis, Omar Gonzalez, perhaps Matt Beasler or Brad Evans, guys on the fringe, like Toronto FC, you could approach a situation where you have to use that wild card early, and that's certainly not what you want to do. So make sure it's in moderation at this point.
All right, the decisions are going to be made probably by Monday, but keep in mind also, it's not just the U.S. national team, it's Honduras, Panama, all the CONCACAF teams. We already know a lot of MLS players are going to be called up for those games. you have to really look at your roster this week going into next. 3 teams on a bye plus national team call-ups. Be very mindful of that, or you're going to be using your wild card, like Andrew said, very early. One last thing I want to mention. I know a lot of Seattle fans and a lot of MLS Fantasy fans are asking about Obafemi Martins. He is not signed officially with the league yet, so he is not added to the game. He will be once that is official, though. So if you're looking for him, you might want to keep about $9.5 million available in your cap.
Yeah, and that could be a really good value. You look at what he's done with Levante. He's coming in midseason form, coming into a Seattle Sounders side in need of another striker, a left-footed option. For me, probably a good pickup when and if he does enter the game.
All right, that's all we have for the starting lineup this week, but tune back next week for more. And don't forget, you can send your questions to @MLS Fantasy if you have any questions for Andrew or myself.